Good afternoon. My name is Megan Keck. I'm with the Satellite Broadcasting and Communications Association. We're in opposition to the amendments of the bill. From our perspective, the new amendments mandates in this legislation are unnecessary and could have an unintended impact on consumers. Existing state and federal law already requires satellite TV companies that offer online registration and enrollment for products and services with recurring charges to provide simple mechanisms for consumers to cancel their subscriptions. Dictating the specific methods of cancellation that companies must offer has facial appeal, but ignores the simplest and best ways to deal with consumer cancellation, and that may not be online. For example, Dish Network, a member of SBCA, currently allows customers to cancel in multiple ways. They allow them to cancel by phone, through email, physical mail, and then online chat currently. These options make it very easy for customers to cancel their service, but they also include some contact with a customer service representative. And here's why. Cancellation is not as simple as clicking online. When a customer wants to cancel their product or services, the satellite TV provider must disclose if they have a cancellation fee, instructions for what to do with the equipment, such as the satellite or the box, and a variety of other issues. In some cases, the customer may call with a complaint wanting to cancel their service, only for the service representative to realize that there may be some easy fix to the technology and solutions to the client's needs. In these instances, allowing customers to cancel services without ever speaking to a representative from the company does nothing to resolve the issues for customers, and indeed may result in unnecessary charges and penalties for the customer. To wrap up, existing law already includes adequate protections to ensure that customers have simple mechanisms to cancel their service. For this reason, we respectfully oppose the amendments, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Steve Carlson. Here.
Mr. Carlson, I do have a little bit of a clock. We basically present for the support and the opposition. We'll be generous with the gavel, but there is a bit of a time
just
constraint.
quickly, and we've been meeting with Mr. Gatto's staff. Wanted to bring to the attention of you, as we did to his staff, that I think we've all been frustrated at certain customer retention phone calls. There is existing federal law that speaks to that. This is obviously not a new issue. A lot of times I think all of us have had those experiences. But I think the main consumer protection is not the method of cancellation, but the ease of cancellation and the process of cancellation. The Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act, which was passed in 2010, basically speaks to these sorts of automatic renewal contracts and says, it requires disclosure up front and all that, but at the end it says you have to provide a simple method for cancellation, but it's technology neutral. And it's enforceable by state attorneys general and the FTC, and they have enforced that. And we have shared that with the author, and obviously want to continue to discuss that and other issues as we move forward. We also have a state law on automatic renewal contracts that was passed in 2009. It's a very prescriptive one, perhaps the most prescriptive in the nation, which also requires a lot of disclosure in advance with respect to automatic renewal contracts with negative options. So within that context, obviously we want to address the issues that are I think of concern to everybody, would like to do it in the context of those of the fact that we have some existing law that's in place.
Did you get it? Ample time? You all right?
I'm good, thank you.
I'll give you.
Did I do okay?
All right, good. Did I do okay?
Mr. Vice Chair, members, Jeremy Mers on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in opposition.
Anthony Molina, California Manufacturers and Technology and Association, in opposition.
All right. I guess we'll bring it to the dais for comments, questions. I think Mr. Obolnoti first, and then Mr. Williams. Mr. Dowling.
Thank you very much. Assemblyman Gatto, I have struggled with this bill. Ordinarily, this is not a bill that I would support because I do not believe in most cases that it's appropriate for a state government to intervene itself in between a company and its customers. However, there are exceptions to that, and I think one of the exceptions is when you have an oligopoly where a natural monopoly that the government is granting. I think the the flip side of the granting of that monopoly is that you accept that there are going to be aspects of your relationships with your customers that the government is going to regulate. And I think that's one of the reasons why we regulate the cable industry. So I'm inclined to support the bill. I had a question, though, concerning your intent with the bill language. And reading the operative section, and this is the committee amendment that you agreed to take, that says if a cable, satellite, or internet service provider enables an individual to subscribe to its service through an internet website, it shall also enable all of its customers to cancel their subscriptions through the internet website. So there's been some confusion on what your intent is. Are you intending that if any customer in the entire customer base of that company can subscribe through the internet, then all customers must be allowed to unsubscribe, or is it that customer that is allowed to unsubscribe?
So I know we talked about this earlier too, and what our intent is, and I apologize for the wording in this because I think it's a little bit confusing. We're not trying to create a situation where if there is one customer who signed up online whatsoever, that the entire customer base is able to cancel online. We're trying to get at the companies that have an affirmative program of online signups. They say you can sign up with the ease of a click. They go over the very terms of cancellation that we just discussed. Then they need to have a tantamount program for cancellation. So that's what we're trying to get at. And the reality is that with these companies, if they do have an online sign-up mechanism, then it will apply to all customers. It's not just going to be one customer.
Okay, so if I'm a customer and I have never been online with the company, am I then, by this legislation, afforded the opportunity to cancel online?
Out of fairness, yes. We have to make it so that any customer, that if they have a program to sign up online, that there's also a tantamount program to cancel online, to provide your notice of cancellation online. And there might be customers who have had these services for 10 or 20 years before there was an online. And so if we said you had to sign up online, we would then be carving out an entire elderly population that might not have signed up. You might have signed up 20 years ago, but we want to give them that ease. This bill is all about providing the ease to the customers to sign up on, to provide their notice of cancellation online, because we believe that that would be more flexible for consumers if they are sitting there in the pajamas at midnight and they want to cancel versus having to sit through a call during business hours.
All right.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
My thoughts are thus that, first of all, we should not be allowing a situation to take place where customers feel unable to actually terminate their service, and that if the interest of the industry is to have the chance to give customers a better deal through escalations or some other process that would be achievable through phone conversation, the same kind of thing is achievable through submission of a form when a cancellation goes through in an online program. Your staff could get a form every time there's a cancellation, shows why the person's canceling, and then contact them via email or whatever and say, look, these are your other options. We will hold off your cancellation if you choose to go into one of these other options. And if that helps consumers, I think this is a good thing and should be supported today. Thank you.
Mr. Gatto, this is a bill that I know I've had a conversation with you on. This is a very difficult bill for me. You referenced my business, and I really want to retain people I've built a relationship with, and so I have a question for you. If you could if one of my customers could just click and not become a customer anymore, I would want to know why. I'd like to have a conversation with them so that I could maybe do a better job to retain future customers and customers I already have. So in this piece of legislation, is there an ability to be able to put an amendment in there where they don't just click and they're gone, that they have an opportunity to talk to their client or somebody they provided a service for, so that they could figure out where they're going, and maybe that they could offer other services? And quite frankly, to my business, there's obviously competitors out there who are in competition against me, and I want to know what they're doing, and I want to know and I know this is a larger issue than my little farming operation, but as a business owner, I want to make sure there's some that we're not getting in the middle too much. I understand I've had to deal with this myself. I've canceled, and it's been a frustration. I understand where you're heading with this piece of legislation, but I also want to give them opportunity to be able to have a conversation, some time, and then make it easier for them to be able to terminate or go to another provider.
So you hit the nail completely on the head. I think you identified what is the crux of this legislation, and that is right now the status quo is that to cancel, you have to sit through 2 hours. In your business, if you got notice, if somebody called you up and said, "Hey, I'm going with your competitor," it would then be your option in the free market to do what you wish to retain that customer. You might send him or her flowers. You might send them chocolates. You might knock on their door, and there is nothing in this legislation that prevents a cable company from doing that. I think Mr. Williams identified this. You could cancel online, and they could send you to a screen that says, "We're sorry to see you go." There's many different websites that do that. They say, "We're sorry to see you go. Will you take a brief survey and tell us what we did wrong?" Most customers would jump at that chance to say, "Oh my God, my signal went out, blah, blah, blah." And at that moment, the very fancy algorithms will say, "Signal went out. We're so sorry. Can we send a repairman over?" So that's one thing that they could do. They could have an online, interface with that person. They can also call them. Again, this is the notice of cancellation, which is, I wish to terminate my service as of a date certain. It's April 25. I want to cancel by May 1. In between that time, the customer has to come current on their bill, and the key thing is they have to return their equipment. Until the equipment is returned, there is no cancellation. So this would free up the companies to call them if they wanted to. The companies could say, "We're going to send you a cardboard box to mail back in your equipment," and within that mailing could be a brochure that says, "Here's a promotional rate. We hate to lose our customers. Here's a promotional rate. Before you drop that box in the mailing box, give us a chance to come back to you." They could knock on their door if they wanted to. They could do anything that they wish to retain their customers, except making them sit through something just to do, which is their not, I won't say a God-given right, but it's a legal created right, which is, you want to terminate a contract, you should be able to terminate a contract. We need to view this from the perspective of the consumer, which is, not only consumer protections, but also contract law. You think of any other contract you want to terminate where you have to sit through a sales pitch. It's kind of extraordinary. Go back to that example I gave about the landlord. We would not tolerate that if renters had to do it. But of course, we do want to make sure that landlords and anybody else can preserve that customer relationship by being a good, fostering a strong relationship, being a good partner, and then having the ability to communicate. And this bill doesn't affect that at all.
Thank you. Well, you've certainly struck upon a populist issue, and your use of imagery is lovely. But I don't know that anybody spends 2 hours trying to get out of Comcast. I know we had a video that took 20 minutes, and we're all consumers sitting up around this dais, so we're protecting consumers, but we're also talking about our own personal experience. So I don't know that there is a problem here that needs to be solved, or at least that it's solved right here. And somewhat like you asked Ms. Lopez to work on hers a little longer. I'd like to see this fleshed out a little bit more. I think with the recent amendments, it's like, so I don't know if we start bidding wars, someone can click on, and you got another company telling you click on over here and click on over there, and the confusion and the unintended consequences it could add. And you referenced that people would have to do all of these things before they could actually terminate, but I don't see that laid out in the bill. I had one of my staff recently who terminated his Comcast, and he did it all online. Chat popped up. He said, "No, I'm done." Moving somewhere that has something else, and he was done in less than 5 minutes. So again, I don't know that there's a real problem that we're trying to solve, and if there is, I don't know that we want to solve it without thinking this all the way through about the unintended consequences that may occur because we've mandated now a business practice when I think that's as Mr. Daly said, we like to know what's going on. I mean, I think that's the free market is the American way, and we have regulations in place, and we all vote with our dollars and our feet. So I won't be able to support this today, but I'm certainly interested in seeing you continue to work on this issue if it moves forward.
Okay. Mr. Chair, first of all, with respect to the cable representative from the cable, Ms. McIntyre, I have read the bill. I believe it does cover the phone companies. I know, having talked with the chair, he believes he's written the bill that way, and I've also talked with the staff. If you have good information that it isn't, I'm sure you can work with the chair and come up with language to make sure it covers UVerse and similar. It is very important to me that this include everything. I do think Mr. Carlson and the representative from the satellite industry came up with some good points about, do you really have to say it's internet? Could it be something, just a simple method? I'm not going to try and think about that right now, but I do think it's something worth considering as the chair moves his bill on, if there's appropriate language. Having said that, I would like to move the bill. I think it's important. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
So, I have a question for the author and for the opposition. First, well, actually, I have two questions for the author. One, so I'm just trying to get clear. So it does include, just so that we're all on the same page, it does include the telephone companies that provide video services, or it doesn't? And just so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so this bill governs the relationship for the provision of video services, television, what we traditionally would call television services, regardless of whether that's a traditional telephone company who's providing those services. Yeah.
Okay. Then my second question for you is, so when you say cancellation, I think I'm having trouble because I'm hearing something different from Mr. Williams than what I know that we talked about. So I'm trying to figure out, when we talked, I believe I asked if someone has a bill that is still outstanding and they cancel online, can they cancel their services? If so, and what is the process? Like, is there a way to discuss what cancellation means or looks like? I mean, is live chat considered being able to cancel online? I'm just trying to get to what actually cancellation online is the intention here.
Sure. So what we're trying to get at is the fact that if you have to sit through a sales call when you attempt to cancel your services, that is something that inconveniences the consumer. We live in a world where just about anything can be canceled using your smartphone or any other device or your computer. And the difference, of course, between that interaction and interaction that is done the traditional way, what is becoming now the old-fashioned way, is that when you have to call, typically that has to occur during business hours. Typically, you have to be put on hold. Whereas you have more control. You are more empowered if you can use your own device to cancel when you wish. There might be a hardworking person who comes home. The cable company is long closed. They want to sit down in front of their computer and cancel at 11:39 p.m. This would enable them to do that. If the company has a live chat that doesn't take 40 or 50 minutes or 20 or 30 minutes or anything like that, but it's part of the online interface, the company is free to do that. That's why this bill is simple and clean. That's why we're trying to be as agnostic as possible in terms of the means that this happens, but we're trying to return the ability to the customer to decide when or if that customer wishes to terminate. Again, it's worthy to go into the example of rental contracts. As somebody who wishes to cancel with their landlord, there's things that we have in California law. There's also, it's governed by the lease. But generally speaking, you can send an email, you can send a note by snail mail, but you don't have to sit through something just to cancel just to notify that you're leaving your building when you're leaving your building. And so that's what we're trying to get at, and that's what the language of the bill does.
So in essence, what you're saying, I just want to make sure I'm clear, that there is flexibility as in whether that's initiating a cancellation or actually canceling that contract. Because like we had the conversation, I tried to cancel my diapers the other day, and they make me call. It's an online company, but they still made me call to cancel my daughter's diaper subscription.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to get to the essence of, like, is this, I could send an email or a form like Mr. Williams was saying. I'm just trying to get to the bottom. So there's some flexibility as what cancel or initiate that cancellation looks like according to this.
Correct. So we would define cancellation, we would refer to other definitions of law, that is to provide notice of cancellation of the service by date certain. So it's, I no longer wish to do business with you. Freedom to contract, right? I no longer wish to do business with you as of May 15. That's all. Nothing else has changed by this bill. You still have to return your equipment. You still got to pay your bills. And, most people are on some sort of, auto-debited auto pay, or the bills come in the mail and they pay them. Your contract would be canceled effective that date, and you would still have to pay your final bill. You would still have to return your equipment.
Okay, and then through the chair, one last question for the cable companies. So, I haven't had this particular problem, but of course I've heard of people having that problem. Would there be anything that we could maybe that would make this more agreeable to everybody in which that you guys could behave maybe a little better in the instances in which you have not behaved properly? I'm trying to be nice. So, and I guess that's really my question is apparently there is obviously some repetition as to bad behavior in your opportunity to retain customers, which I wholeheartedly support your opportunity to retain your customers. However, I am concerned about, unfortunately, a few too many comments about the bad behavior. I haven't had the same situation, but I hear it is happening. So what would you say as what would be a way to rectify that situation on your part?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I think that the bad behavior or the behavior that was described by Assemblymember Gatto is the exception and not the rule. I don't think that all consumers have bad experiences. But in direct response to your question, first of all, again, we contend that the bill is not technology neutral. If, in fact, that is the member's intent, then I don't see what the harm would be to specifically call out video service providers and our over-the-top market competitors, our Netflix, our Gulus, our Hulu TVs, all of which provide the same type of product in the market that we provide. If, in fact, it is intended to be technology neutral, it should speak to all of them.
And if I may, I have no problem with that. I mean, we believe the language is rather clear, and I have hesitated very strongly. I did not want to have a public hearing, and I don't think it behooves your industry to have a public hearing where I go through the litany of complaints that the lady whose husband died, and the customer service rep said only he can cancel his service and kept her on hold for 2 hours during a very tough period of her life. I don't want to go into those things. I don't want to go into the practices of Netflix and Hulu or Amazon where they let you cancel with a click and draw this huge contrast. I don't think it behooves us to have this back and forth. I don't think it behooves either of us. But the fact of the matter is that I have faith that your customers can read. I have faith that they can read the same things that you want to provide them verbally. I think that they could read online. I also have faith that we can apply this to whoever you wish. We want to make sure that we have a level playing field, and I've said that since day one of my testimony. So I don't want to continue where you say that there's not a big problem, and I have to give examples of a big problem. I don't think that's wise. I think we should agree to work on this. You certainly have my commitment that I will work with the opposition, and I think we should leave it at that.
If I could respond to the second part of your question, is simply the need to have a two-way communication. And maybe there's a way that the bill can accommodate that. In its current form, we don't believe it does. We'd love to work with the Assembly member to see whether or not it's possible to craft such a solution.
Sure. First, I'd like to commend the author, and I I shared this experience with them because at first when I looked at the bill, I had a little bit of confusion. But then I did have a staff member who went through a process of 1 hour. And it's fair to say that, I can't tell the difference between an overzealous employee who may not follow the exact rules. And, that happens. And each one of us will experience that at one time with an employee. And the difference between, an internal policy that may allow for that to happen. And certainly I'm not working for the industry, so I can't answer that question. So I do think it is an issue that we have to tackle. I think it's appropriate that the bill talks about ending a contract and the ability to end a contract through website. I do think that there's good sense in there, but there's a few loose ends, and I think the ability to communicate with a person. And this is very different than maybe some arguments we may have heard back and forth in the bill. I agree with you on the ability to close it down on the internet because it makes sense. However, and I'm encouraged by the author wanting to work with the opposition on a couple loose ends. I wonder if I might just throw in there the ability to talk about what that last person communication might be. I'm sensitive to consumer retention. Certainly we've done a lot in the legislature to try to be a little bit more business friendly, but also not handicap a business in the inability to retain a customer, probably even give them a better deal than a competitor can give them. But I want to be mindful and safeguard to the intent of this bill, which is to cancel through the internet. So I wonder if the author might just consider at least looking at what that last point of contact might be. Should it be loose ends like it just happened in my office? Very different stories, but nonetheless. But some miscommunication and a box was not turned in, and so now you have 2 months worth of $100 bill. I mean, $100 invoices to her, which is $200. And I can see a situation where my mom who's probably not as educated as we are, and that's a nice way of saying it, but nonetheless, might press the button and have a challenge later on with some loose ends and continue to be billed. Because I could see as an industry where you might say, well, we're going to charge you for this equipment, and you might cancel it, but you still have the equipment and you're still going to continue to be charged. So in order to eliminate some loose ends and give the opportunity for a better deal, I'm hopeful that the author might be willing to work with the opposition. I'm not going to press amendments on here because I don't think it's fair to ask it to any member to take an amendment without then having to take a look at. I wouldn't do that, and I'd recommend that we don't. But to at least commit to say, hey, I'll work on what that looks like.
Yeah, so I've always had a warm relationship with the people that are in opposition to this bill in my 6 years here, and I think we will continue to have a warm relationship. I'm more than happy to work on that and other proposals. Again, I don't want to get in this situation where I'm calling out good companies and bad companies, because I don't think that behooves either of us. But there are lots of companies that what they do is when you go to cancel or when you go to call customer service, what they now do is they say, hey, by the way, do you want to be on hold or do you want us to call you back in like 15 minutes whenever we're ready? And that would just go so much of a long way to making people happy. And I dare say that this is something that, my bill, because it does not prohibit that, it specifically still allows it. And so I know that customer retention is very important, and I want every company here to be able to do it, but I would submit that there's a good way to do it in a way that protects customers and protects our precious time.
Mr. Dolly, and then Ms. Garcia.
So that was the original question, is what Santiago just asked about. What is that last point of contact? That's sort of critical for me, that you have the ability to actually communicate with your client, and that you have. And then the other thing is that I think we should include everybody in this bill. I think it should be stated that we should include everybody. This is not just one company's issue. There are many companies that have the same issue, and many dissatisfied customers out there. So those are two things that are key for me on this bill. And the last point of contact is something I think really needs to be stressed, because I want to give the companies the opportunity to hopefully streamline the process so that somebody can disconnect if they really want to disconnect, but also have the opportunity for them to retain them.
Sure. Ms. Garcia, and then Ms. Brady.
So, and a question about if a lot of these providers give you bundling, so you bundle cable, internet, and phone. Would you be able, because right now the bill doesn't speak to the phone aspect of it all, would I be able to go online and cancel all of that, or only the internet and the cable?
You would be able to provide notice of termination, wish to terminate the consumer relationship with that company for all of the services.
So I would be able to. But if I'm not in a bundle situation, then I can't cancel my telephone. Because I mean, right now I get that you're just going after. It just right now it speaks to the internet, satellite, and cable. And I think a lot of us are talking about that expansion, right? But why is telephone not included in here? And I get that you're trying to chip away, so you're moving it forward. But these are all things that kind of are in the same realm, in the same family. Why isn't it included?
Well, again, I don't want to stand up here and point out all of the bad the examples that have been reported in the media nationwide that consumers have had with one industry group. But generally speaking, telephony is a different product. Generally speaking, with telephones, you can call 611, you can say, I wish to terminate my relationship, and there's often an early termination fee that you have to pay that is signed in that original contract. There's also the complicating factors, of course, of, did you get that iPhone for free at the original thing? But we just have not seen the complaints in the world of telephony. But that being said, if I won't be here next year, but I expect that this bill, because it does try to address the importance of convenience, that other people, perhaps you, would want to carry a bill to broaden this to different industries where we find it appropriate. But
I will say that I think there are a lot of complaints from all landline owners of trying to cancel and it being really hard, actually. So, I feel that whilst we're chipping away, this is too narrowly crafted. I get that right, the cleanest bill would say that if you entered a contract online, you could cancel online, period. Right? So that would be it. But I get that you're trying to chip away. But I do feel that the telephones should be included in this step now. I mean, it's in the same family, and there are plenty of horror stories with telephones. Landlines, a little separate from wireless, which is what we were discussing in the previous Lopez bill. Without including that, I don't feel comfortable with this bill right now. I would like to see something, because I think what you're talking about is true. There's a lot of frustration, whether it's diapers, whether it's a landline, whether it's cable. There is a lot of frustration out there, but I do feel telephones should be included in this piece, and it's something that I know my staff had talked to committee staff about before, telephones.
So